So today we're going to be talking about the meaning of dreams. It's a big topic, right? Everyone dreams. And some of us remember dreams more than others. And some of us have very lucid daydreams where they feel like they are kind of thinking or dreaming for hours during the day. And it's a very big topic because is this something that is helpful, meaningful? Where is this coming from? So obviously there's a lot of silliness in dreams. Like the sages use the example of an elephant going through the eye of a needle. Now our typical understanding of the world, of the laws of physics, is that elephants do not go through eyes of needles. But it opens up the power of imagination, of creativity, of our ability to think in terms of, well, what is possible, right? Not what we have already discovered in the world, what has science already discovered, but what is possible. And so if you think about science fiction, very much that's the topic. It's like not what is around me presently, but what is possible. And so when we think about dreams, like, first of all, is it a good idea or not to record our dreams or to depict our dreams in images? Like there's all this type of technology available that's coming out. Is that a good idea or not? And so the short answer to that is we're already experiencing that. And anytime we see like a movie, like a fictional account, that's someone's dream. Now, maybe it's not actually, that they went to sleep and then they had a dream and then they recorded that dream and then that's the movie. But they sat during the day at their typewriter or computer and they typed up a story or wrote down a story. But that story was some type of an approximation of different aspects of their life and different experiences, right? You write what you know, but it's kind of like included in there's elements of truth to it. To any story, there's elements of truth. That's what makes it so compelling. But there's a lot of silliness, and that's really what a dream is. A dream is just kind of like filled with a lot of silliness, and it has some aspects of truth to it. For instance, you can view any like fantasy as having a point of truth to it. Like, let's say, a fantasy animal. Like, what is the real world version of that animal? And many of these mythologies actually began with true accounts, true stories, but a whole mythology was constructed around some true occurrence, some true event, like some species, some animal that they didn't know what it was. So they created a whole mythology around it. And that's a very common thing. So when you think of a movie or you think of a dream, it's basically that you're creating some type of a fiction or mythology around elements of truth. So what's the harm in that? Well, it's very compelling because it has some elements of truth to it, but at the same time it's very distracting because ultimately you're just engaging in a fiction, in a dream. And so people that are, it's called maladaptive daydreaming, people that spend hours each day daydreaming. So they realize that ultimately it's better to be engaged in the real world, ultimately, if you had a choice. But the daydream world is very compelling. Like just like a person would rather or enjoys escaping to movies, right? Movie after movie after movie, or some type of fictional fantasy world for hours and hours on end. Now, if the world around you was viewed as something truly remarkable, right, then maybe I'd say, hey, wait a minute, maybe I would leave that dream and see the wonder of the world, see the fantasy, the magical element of the real world. And so that's really where we're headed, of taking our dream experience, by isolating the points of truth, and then revealing how the real world is really magical and special. And that's what's called the coming of the redemption, the coming of Mashiach, of the Jewish Messiah. That's really what that means. That's why the sages call it waking up from a dream. Because to wake up from a dream means that our current reality, we're asleep to the wonders of our current reality, and we escape to the worlds of fantasy and games and movies and all these types of fictional things. But we're going to see, and we're seeing more and more, how the world itself is very wonderful and very miraculous. And that begins by isolating those things in fiction and in fantasy that are those points of truth, isolating it, and then uncovering why it is that my soul is so excited by it. So we'll give an example. One of the most heralded episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation is called The Inner Light. And in this episode, Captain Picard goes through this an alternate life. And let's explain what happened here. So first they encounter some type of an alien probe or satellites, and they don't know initially what it is. But what happens is the whole episode, effectively, Captain Picard is in a coma. For almost the entire episode, he's in a coma. And what is he doing while he's in a coma? He's living a life. And initially he was hesitant, but he marries and has children and grandchildren, and he lives this entire life on some type of civilization. And then, spoiler alert, he awakens towards the end of the episode, and they realize that this probe, what was this probe? It was a civilization. It was an ancient civilization that no longer exists. They're extinct. There's no remaining members of this civilization. And they sought out some representative who would carry along the memory of this civilization. So inside this probe, they found a flute. And so the last scene of this episode, again, this is considered by many to be the best Star Trek Next Generation episode. It's called The Inner Light, but it's considered at least one of the top ones. And by many, it's considered the top episode. Because again, we're going to see, because the point of truth is so strong here, and the metaphor is so strong. That's what makes a good episode, right? Because the point of truth, not the fiction, not the dream. So he's playing the flute that was left for him, ultimately. That was left for this representative of their civilization. He remembers how to play the flute. So wait a minute. This thing of playing the flute was something that he learned while he was in this coma, in this dream. But he actually remembers how to play the flute. So is it a dream or not? And so that's the whole question. So it's hard to say that he was actually living the life of a person that actually existed in this civilization. Why? He's given a name, and there's the people of the civilization, but a person has free will. So to say that he's one for one living the exact life of someone that lived in that civilization is a little bit of a stretch. Even if he's given the same name as someone in that civilization, really this was his life that he was living, because a person has choice. And initially he was hesitant to get married and have a family because, right, as the captain of the Starship Enterprise, he doesn't have that. But yet he settles down and he finds great joy in this life. And then we see the end of the episode is that he actually remembers how to play the flute. And this wasn't just a dream. This was something that was something that was real. But what was real about it? And so this is a great lesson in fiction, especially science fiction, but in all of fiction, is that, first of all, what does it mean to be encountered by aliens? Many times this is to encounter our soul. like with Superman, right? He's coming from this distant land of Krypton, and he's escaping, and then he comes to Earth. That's the story of our soul, is that it comes from this distant place, and it comes to this world, and trying to make sense, and trying to realize that really we can do something really super and amazing in this world because of our soul, because of this great God is sending us here for a special mission and purpose, and we're really super people, right? We can really be heroic and really someone who is really saving the day. So anytime we automatically, when we think of something that's coming from afar, something that's coming from a distance, especially something that is like an ancient civilization, something that's very old, so that's our soul.